Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Deep Dive into Mastery. And I'm your host, DE, and we are going to build off from our last episode with intentions. We were discovering what intentions uh, were truly made of, right? From what we plant that seed of our intention with to the energy behind it, and most importantly, um, giving a new angle that although we have great intentions, why does it not go to what we expect, right? Or why do things um, don't grow per se, right? And as we were able to go into all of the deeper aspects of what makes intentions, we found that it was your attitudes, your perceived norms, your beliefs onto the littlest things like your personality, your demographics, and of course, your thoughts and feelings. And this is where we will pick up and where we will emphasize our deep dive in, which is thoughts and feelings and how it creates our reality, our current reality as we speak. So, whatever you are going through, whatever you are seeking, and the reason why you are probably watching this video, joining me in this deep dive is because we're going through something, going through what you would call your reality, your truth. You could be sick right now, looking for healing. You could be going through a harsh breakup or having marital problems or trying to find the one. So, relationships and finding meaningful relationships to personal development, trying to find your purpose, being better, but you feel stuck and stagnant. Whatever it is, um, even as an athlete and you have a performance slump or you're having performance anxiety, uh, this episode on thoughts and feelings or this subject could be profound stuff because it does create your condition, right? So let's go ahead and start our deep dive here with the brain and the studying of the brain, what we call neuroscience, right? So let's try to see how our brain works. So, as we know, we create experiences or we experience the world as we know it. And with each action of our brain through not only your perception, but what you do, your brain is starting to create connections. The neurons and the webbing and what we call the synaptic wiring all comes through your brain in action. And that could be from how many years that you have brushed your teeth to taking a shower to any complex function, right? And it started from when we were born. We were already learning. And so it's funny because I'm thinking about my toddler right now, my daughter, and right now she's learning so much, learning to climb, and she wants to touch and feel and experience, right? Be in motion. She likes to climb right now, and there's almost no fear. And that's just because everything that's happening is creating the stimulus in her mind and everything is new and it's creating what we call connections. So her neurons are firing and the webs are starting to be created. Now, she's starting to master now certain things. And that mastery is due to these synapses not only continuing to fire, but they create deeper grooves into your mind. And that is known to what we call programming. It starts to become second nature, right? It starts to become an automatic response. And starting to understand how the brain works. We got to start to understand what really happens when we experience certain events, right? Your experience is usually interacted with the external environment. And that is usually what we call stressors, right? So it's not stress, but stressors. So anything that perceive as pressure or energy, um, as you experience or interact with their external environment, that being you in school, you learning something from the whiteboard as you listen to your teacher, to playing in the playground, to even the government, right? And what does their policies and laws affect your business to your community, your culture, your upbringing, your family interactions, all of these experiences started to create some neurons. And based on what you have, the way that you have experienced it starts to now form your thoughts and beliefs. You start to associate. Okay. And as we start to associate, these experiences create emotions. Okay. So as you experience something, there's a electrical fire up from all of the information that, that you are receiving. And that information sparks all of the neurons and it creates an emotion, an energy and motion throughout the body. And based on that emotion, you now start to associate a type of feeling or a type of thought. And usually the case is that thoughts and feelings are married to one another. So if it produces a thought, the thought reinforces the feeling and the feeling reinforces the thought. It goes on to this loop, right? So we see that event, you feel it, your brain processes it, you start to feel it, and then that feeling starts to create an associated thought, basically a way of thinking or a perception, right? And how you go about your world. And through all of the experiences, like we said, from the education to family upbringing to things that you physically experience, like falling and moving throughout the world, along with all of the many things, you start to now create associated thoughts and feelings, and it starts to run through not only your brain but your body. And so the thing with the emotions is that it's chemical. It's a biochemical response within your body. And so, like in this picture right here, you're seeing the event and it's going into your brain. Your brain is now creating a chemical response through that limbic system. And through that limbic system and all your glands and all the hormones that gets released, it starts to create this perfect ratio to what a feeling is, an emotion. So if you were to feel anger, there's a certain automatic response that your brain knows how much of certain gland or certain hormones to create the feeling of anger within the body. And so it's a higher chemical response means that the event will hold more of a emotional charge. And so we get this, what we call a chemical feedback from your experiences or what we say your past. And so based on the amount of trauma that was held or the amount of emotional charge, then the brain starts to remember it even more. The deeper the grooves, the more connections it makes. Sadly, a lot of it is from negative experiences or negative emotional charges because negative emotions hold a high charge as well, from anger to deep sadness. All of these things on the spectrum are very strong. It's felt throughout the body through this chemical response. And of course, we associate a thought. And that thought usually is a negative association of like, I don't want to feel this pain again. And so the thinking feeling leap goes on, and you go into this mode of cycling this thought and feeling to create bigger and deeper grooves. All right. I'm just going to segue to an example. So let's put this into kind of like a practicum. All right. We're going to need a subject. I'm just going to name this subject Sarah. Right. And we're going to pick a topic of relationships, of love, things like that. Now, this person, this fictional character that we're making right now in Sarah, she experienced, right? She is the embodiment of her past experiences through her family, her parents, school interactions, started to have her create a way of thinking and feeling towards a partner, right? Let's just say this relationship that she started to have, a young teenage age, it because of course these are, young, it's during their early stage and everything is so immature. She experiences this love life and later on it becomes somewhat of an abusive relationship. to us, and it's abusive, from verbal to maybe even physical or something, where now it's reinforcing these feelings, reinforce her thoughts of her own worth, right? And so many years she goes through this and she finally builds the courage to leave, right? Now, here we're in this situation where there could be two options, right? So when she does leave and now she wants to move forward in life and find someone new, option one is that most likely because of what she has gone through and this cycle of this feeling thinking loop based on the experiences she has had, not only in the past, but even in that relationship she just got out of. That is going to be her perceived reality, meaning that all of the emotions and thoughts are now not just cerebral, like, oh, I had the courage to leave, so I'm going to go ahead and change. The body, because of all of the chemical residue, her body is now accustomed to that type of biochemical feedback. So it's kind of like a drug, right? Your body is used to running in a certain way, feeling a certain way. And so she will probably pick someone who will, or attract someone who will be or experience the same experience that she had in the past, which becomes a vicious cycle. And that's where it leads to many people going, hey, watch out, because you're falling back into a relationship where it may be a different person and it may feel new, but it's just the same person with a different face. So you're just repeating the same type of character or dating the same character, right? The other way of how this could be expressed is that maybe Sarah does find the perfect one, someone who is different. However, when she's experiencing life with this person and it's new, because the body was so used to feeling unworthy, feeling, a certain way with abuse or fighting conflict, her body goes, hey, this is too good to be true. And so that body, the feeling goes, hey, let's reinforce her thoughts and let's start making some trouble. And so the thoughts go, yeah, you're right, because we used to feel this and now it's not. Why? Let's let's go assume. Let's go pick a fight. And I hear this a lot when talking to many people, that sometimes they have this way of thinking or perception that relationships, uh, you should have more conflict, or it's not fun without fights, or it's too boring. It's too peaceful. And they start to distort their reality that peace is a bad thing. And so they start to stir up trouble. And I hope that this example kind of resonates, because it could be that when people are used to this chemical uh, uh, feeling in their body, all that residue, it could mean it could stop you from actually making the changes of growth. And I think that's where the emphasis of this is, that we could change our way of thinking. Like, for instance, in therapy, and coaching. I'm a health and wellness coach, and we dealt with a lot of behavior change. And we would set goals and say, okay, do you want to change this? And what do you want to do? And really collaborate with someone. And they would make the goal to change physically, and they have to change their lifestyle per se, right? We go in and then the next week, oh, I didn't do it. And I always kept trying, well, why? Right. And they would always point to something external. But as I was continuing to research, because it's like these people know what they need to do. They know what's bad for them. They're well educated. The thoughts, we're hitting the mind and the brain, and they're learning. But why can't they make the deeper change to actually do it? All right. So, for instance, if it was exercise, they know exercise is to help their sickness, their symptoms, and we need to exercise more. But yet they just can't exercise. Why? Why is that behavior? So, with this thinking feeling loop, we start to understand that it's because it's also, when we talk about not just thoughts and changing behavior, there is that bodily chemical feedback. and it's still stuck within the body. They're not used to feeling this way. And so because everything is associated, like back to that exercise example, when they exercise, that experience of exercise starts to trigger the opposite body chemicals, and to them it's foreign. And it's like, oh, it's painful. And then suddenly that pain reinforces the thought, and the thought's like, yeah, I can't exercise. And because they can't exercise, it goes on back to the feeling, and we go into that loop. Same thing with Sarah. And sadly, in this term of relationships, um, she, first of all, it takes a long while to take the courage to leave because it's what she was used to. But finally, when she does leave, the body will call her back to feeling the same things, whether it is to choose a partner who's alike or to corrupt something that is good. And this is why we wanted to go into how thoughts and feelings really could affect your reality, and that reality could affect your intention, right? Some of the cool things, if you think about it, thoughts is basically what you would say the language of the brain. It's pure electric. It signals out. So when you have a thought, it comes from in to out. Now, your feelings, the emotions that you feel, they're magnetic. Magnetic meaning the magnetic field of your body. So they attract. Together, thoughts and feelings is the electromagnetic field. What you are sending out through thoughts, and then what you're feeling through what you pull in. And so in this case of Sarah, whatever her thoughts and feelings, she's sending out something that's really what she's used to. And then she's attracting, right, those things that will reinforce what she's used to. And so in order to change that, we not only have to change a person's thought pattern, but even the way they feel. And by having them feel the opposite and helping them understand that this is normal. This is the good stuff, I would say. So it's like you have to detoxify your body through this channeling of feeling that is really done by the deep mental work. As we continue with that thinking feeling loop, we start to understand that everything that you're thinking and feeling is also based on a past experience. It is also based on your past. Now, everything that you're basing on so that you can make future decisions, are you really using your free will? That's the other part too. We start to call programming. If you want to go ahead and you have this intention for the future, that intention is good. You want to be successful. However, when you look into that future and you start to see all these obstacles and your mind starts to associate a lot of these challenges with past experiences, well, now you're going to go ahead and live a life that's based on what we call fear-based thinking because you're fearing the past. Whatever you're doing, you're thinking and feeling, all your decisions for the future is going to be basically based off the past. So you're going towards a predictable future because you're just going to feel that. And that's also the other danger when it comes to this thinking feeling loop. And what I mean, this danger of the thinking feeling loop of this unawareness of what may be going on in your underlining or your inner world. And so it's very important to really see the thoughts that we feed ourselves and really which voices are we really hearing and if it's true. However, your reality is based on what? And so we have to always inquire ourselves, inquire our heart and go, well, if I'm thinking, feeling this way, really what's creating this reality, right? Is it a faulty experience that I've had in the past? Like, even though I've experienced that, is that really going to happen all the time, right? And that's where anxiety kind of stems from, right? This is a perfect example, actually, of anxiety when you're thinking about the future, but all these pressures are happening and you're thinking all these what ifs. But all those what ifs is also because it's based on a program on the past, on a past hurt, right? Because you were just hurt with a highly negative charged event. And if you just allow that event to stay in the past and be like, that's what happened here, I need to now just focus in the present where there is possibility. and you could detach that emotional charge, then maybe you could start to make the right decisions. And with the different decisions and different actions, you start to create new connections. And so those connections start to now form. And then you start to become a new person because you start to think differently and to feel differently. And hence having different experiences, maybe even the opposite. And so that's where living in the program and getting out of that program through being, present and understanding that uh, could make a big difference in your life. Now, to continue on, I wanted to also connect how your thoughts and feelings, from certain thought, because sometimes people don't think thought is powerful, right? Obviously, we're seeing a lot of information now being more of the norm. Some people go, can't just imagine my way out, or does it really yield something tangible? People know that thoughts are important when it comes to doing the work as far as the healing aspect of your thoughts and feelings. When it comes to like, hey, let's do some coaching, let's do some therapy. It's so hard to get people into these things because deep down inside, they think that there's nothing tangible from it, no value. And I wanted to kind of go ahead and make this connection of how thoughts and feelings could go ahead and manifest into your physical reality. And this physical reality is basically the cause of chronic illness and sickness. So how can we connect this? As we could see that when you're thinking and feeling, it creates not only the electrical signal, but a biochemical response. That biochemical response from the brain is sent throughout the whole body. And that's why you could feel, like I said, emotions, feelings are the language of the body. So in order for your body to know it, it's felt by chemical responses, your physiology. Heart rate goes up, pupils dilate, goes crazy, and you start to feel shaky. That is all through the normal stress response. And it's all to keep us safe, right? But why is it different today? Because that normal response was for something physical. You see a bear, boom. But most of our stresses are coming from just straight up the mind. There's no bear, there's no nothing, but someone is stressed at work. Someone doesn't like the interaction. So they have an interaction with human or society. So they have what we call social anxiety, right? What is going on here, right? And once more, it's triggered to what was programmed from the past. But that program, that because they're associating the fear with this new experience, but they're experiencing it as if it was a trauma from the past, the brain continues to send out, right, through your physiology, the adrenal glands, all these hormones and glands, and to communicate that you're in danger. And of course, your inflammatory immune cells, they have to respond, but when it's prolonged, cortisol, you start to become resistant. Your immune system starts to basically be taxed because it's handling too. And so we go into what we call chronic stress. And so we're talking about stress management, and stress is the silent killer. It's the silent killer because what makes you stress? It's perception. Because remember, stressors, doesn't make you stress. Stressors is just how you experience life, but you make it stress. You make it stress you out. If you allow your child and they act a certain way and you get triggered because of a program of how you were brought up, and then you just repeat a cycle, well, your stress response continues, right? And imagine if you continue to feel this because you're feeling it, you felt it when you were a kid, but now you're a father or a mother, 20, 30 years past, and you keep running this negative program. Well, that's why in chronic stress, you start to have this sympathetic overdrive. The sympathetic is the sympathetic nervous system from the autonomic nervous system. That's your fight or flight. Well, with chronic stress and because of your immune system you're just not allowing yourself to internally relax. You're in this constant state. You're in this drip. right? The dripping of cortisol, the dripping of, it may not be a spike in your heart rate, but instead of a 60 beats per minute, you're resting at a 75 or a 68. All of that starts to accumulate through time. And then finally, your nervous system becomes imbalanced. And with imbalance, and if you look here to the right, that yellow section, you start to get symptoms, right? And those symptoms start to pile up. Your nervous system starts to become exhausted. And then now you have a disease. But with your genetics, something that's inherited, your DNA, you're not solely the product of what you have inherited per se, right? We understand that there is correlation, heart disease and cancer. If you have a history in your family line, you know, they're thinking that, oh, because there's a history, you're going to get it. That's not exactly true. And what they're learning in epigenetics is that your gene expression is based off your environment, basically what you put yourself into. And that doesn't just mean the food, the environment, like where you're living, pollutants, and all of this. What they really mean, genes, is the internal environment, because stress is that leading cause. That's why they're saying it's the silent killer. But what makes you in this environment of stress, right? And so this environment of stress goes on ahead and affects your genes. And then if you have that gene to express, a sickness, it's basically, you basically get it just like a pattern. But they don't understand that everything's frequency. Your genes don't always express the negative frequency. It's because you're surrounding it in a negative environment. If you put those genes into a positive environment, they don't express sickness. They don't express illness. They express probably a gift or something much more efficient, healing. Okay, so that's what we have to understand with epigenetics as well, because some people might blame their history, but it's not solely that. You could basically stop it based on the environment that you put yourself in. And that environment the internal environment starts with your thoughts and feelings. What programs are you running? Understanding the way of thinking and why you're thinking a certain way and feeling. Because what's normal to you, your perceived norms, might not be the truth, right? And there might be a better way to cope with certain stressors. There's a better way of thinking as you experience all these stressors, but depending on what your stressor is, right? If you're having an interaction with someone, it's conflict resolution, and you're coming at this as, I need to be right, because if I'm wrong, that's weakness. You're just going to go through this loop of this egoic interaction, and it's just not going to serve you down the line, because you're going to keep treating people like that, where you have to be right. And suddenly your nervous system gets imbalanced, exhausted, and you might feel that you've gone over this oral, but deep down inside it, in a molecular level, you're still running in this negative loop, the thinking feeling loop, right? So your body is still agitated. So that is basically how your thoughts and feelings can manifest into your physical realm, right? Through sickness. And obviously, it could also manifest the opposite. So if we could think and feel our way into sickness, you could think and feel your way into growth, into high level wellness, into fulfillment, to whatever you think. And I love this continuum, because you could fill in the blanks. On the right, not only healed, but growth. Or on the left, premature death, right? With sickness, disability. We could go to fulfillment and unfulfillment, right? Meaningful and loving relationship, a sterile, non-meaningful, abusive relationship, right? Interactions with people could be meaningful interactions with people, loving interactions, or distrust in humanity and things like that. High level performance, peace, This one is for athletes. You see it with those Zen warriors where they say peace and flow and this optimal performance compared to choking and performance anxiety, things like that. This diagram starts to see that wherever you want to go, see how your thoughts and feelings put you. Where is it putting you? Whatever your goal is on the right and whatever you're facing on the left, try to see the connections of how your thoughts and feelings are playing in the underlining field of your mind and see how it's affecting your current reality. And like I said, it's thoughts and feelings also drive into so many parts of your well-being, right? You could have thoughts and feelings, a program towards your physical health, right? And of course, of how you eat, how you sleep, your way of thinking when it comes to exercise. It could also go into your intellectual wellness. So what you perceive as true, biases, and things like that. Interpersonal, the relationships, how you treat others, how you treat yourself goes into how you are programming these thoughts and feelings, so on and so forth. So I think it's pretty redundant now as how things are going in, but I think you guys get the point. And sometimes we have to understand that, hey, we have to do somewhat of deep work. Right? Life is more deeper than we know it to be. And some of these things, we just scratch the surface. I wanted to connect to those who think, because I've heard this as a coach and as a person who was helping others, especially in at intense times where they're feeling it at the moment, they're going through it. They don't want to hear things like, "Hey, man, just breathe," and it's something going in, or they want me to choose a side, but all I could do is go, "No, we can't control others. We can't blame others because we can't really control them. But what we could do is control yourself and how you deal with yourself." And sometimes they don't like to hear that while they're in that moment, and it's understandable. As I'm helping more people, I am hearing too, like, oh, okay, well, now you're just telling me it's just my thoughts, so I just could change. I could just will it to exist. And although I commend them, and yes, if there is a will, there's a way. However, the conscious mind, as in this diagram, is 10% of your mind. In other cases, I've seen it's actually 5% and the subconscious is 95. I believe those numbers are right because also at today's times, we're becoming more egoic. So there's a lot into the subconscious that's being programmed that consciously we are none aware of. So I believe that now the conscious mind is 5%. And if you could just will yourself with only 5% of your mind, I don't think we could make meaningful change. I don't think we could transform because your subconscious mind records everything and it could be in a state of it being unhealed. It's an unhealed mind. And if it's vibrating, that's 95% of your mind vibrating at a negative, highly negative charge, meaning your beliefs, emotions, your habits, your values, subconsciously, it's programmed. So you're going to be reacting without even knowing. It's all unconscious unless you make yourself aware, right? And that's why I also want to bring this because we want to now heal the subconscious mind. In order for us to make meaningful change, we have to go deep. We have to go into how our subconscious sees the world and start to pull out the fears, pull out the emotions, and to really allow yourself to go to some of your past and really start to clean house. This is where our thoughts and feelings lead, which is your subconscious mind. Like we said with neurology, your brain continues to make neurons with every new experience. But as you continue to experience and act that certain way, it gets deeper and deeper and it becomes automatic. Once it goes automatic, that means it's the subconscious, the unconscious level. So when you start to notice your reactions, something what they call trigger you, it's all based on those programs that has already reached your subconscious. So in order to see why I do this, that's where the internal work is. Now, yes, the number one thing that you could do, and it's free, is meditate. The other thing that is a must is that as you experience life, notice your thoughts and feelings. Not just notice them, but start to become aware of those feelings and be aware that those feelings doesn't have to be your truth. Notice that the way of thinking doesn't have to be your truth. And you could challenge your reality. You have to go, why am I thinking this? And start to go through that background. If you ever want to dive deeper into this work, the inner work, especially with the subconscious mind, and really tackle whatever you're going through in life in another angle that goes to the root of things, go ahead and check out my website, DE Path to Mastery, or sorry, depaths.com. This is how I help guide and heal and coach through this process. There is another aspect to the deeper, I guess you say, in our flow chart from intention to thoughts and feelings. There is another deeper, what do I want to call it? Another deeper factor, or I'm going to call it a character, an enemy that does work against you using your thoughts and feelings so that it could also create a skewed reality that will keep you in this stagnant feeling or this place of separateness, per se. But I hope that this episode, the second episode, was enlightening and that it served you today. And if you ever want to know more, please continue to reach out, leave comments, subscribe, and follow, and we'll continue more of these topics and discussions. And hopefully, we start to now become more aware of our thoughts and feelings and our reality. Until next time, be safe and stay aware and have a good one. All right. Take care.